we interrupt week 6 just for a moment to bring you the last little bit of week 5. Big Mode Bellibolt and the Foraging Furrets have now played their set, so let's wrap this one up before we jump into all the others, yeah? So on the Bellibolt side, we do see the duo of Oranguru and Bellibolt back together once again. We see the Grand Bull. The Grand Bull's interesting here, actually, because it could intimidate the physical attackers, multiple strong physical attackers on the other side, except, of course, there is that Defiant Bisharp. What would be really interesting is if its ability shield intimidate Grand Bull into wheezing Bisharp stuff, but that's probably that would probably be overcooking quite a bit. I don't think that's actually a realistic expectation. I think it would be very hard to position, but it would be interesting. Honestly, maybe it could be ability shield Grand Bull anyway, just so that you can intimidate Staraptor or Brambleghast next to wheezing. Could be fun if we see that. Anyway. We got the Orthworm, the Houndoom, and the Cramorant here. Makes sense. Decent offensive coverage from Houndoom and Cramorant into the opposing team. Yeah, the Houndoom fire coverage for Bisharp and Brambleghast is pretty good. The Cramorant helps deal with Pokemon like Girder and Rhyhorn. And as special attackers, they can threaten the Wheezing. And then the Orthworm, I don't know, maybe it sets up a Shed Tail for something. We'll see what it does. On the Furret side, the Rhyhorn being here is interesting. I don't know what that Pokemon is here to do, but otherwise we know that the Staraptor is a menace. We saw it do tons of damage even against my Iron Defense Torkoal in week 4. We know that it can set up Tailwind for Wind Rider Brambleghast. We know that if they don't turn off their own abilities, then the Bisharp makes it a lot harder to intimidate this team. So a lot of the things we've been used to seeing from both of these coaches, but let's see how they match up against each other now. Got Orthworm and Oranguru leading against Wheezing and Bisharp. If Oranguru is running something like Bulldoze to set up the Bellibolt, then it could also use that to keep Orthworm healthy. It could be Iron Defense Orthworm with Oranguru support, Trick Room, maybe Bulldoze. That's a little bit of anti-synergy there, but even Instruct to boost up more quickly. It is Wheezing and Bisharp on the other side. We see Terra Ground Wheezing immediately. We see a big low kick into Orthworm, does a lot of damage. Orthworm gets a Citrus Berry, but it's still under half. And we see Ground Terra Blast from the Wheezing. Of course, Orthworm probably is running Earth Eater, but that's not going to work when Wheezing is neutralizing gas on the field. So whatever support the Oranguru has for the Orthworm, whatever the Orthworm is trying to do here, we're not going to see it, as it does just get dropped by that Ground Terra Blast. Oranguru says Trick Room. Now we see the Bellibolt come in. And we see Wheezing pivot out immediately to the Rhyhorn. So Rhyhorn, I did sort of just glance over it and say that's an unevolved Pokemon. I don't know what it's here to do, but I mean it's probably here with the Lightning Rod to give teammates like Bisharp and Staraptor cover from the Bellibolt's electric attacks. We see Terra Grass immediately on the Bellibolt, interesting in front of Wheezing, but they do just catch the Rhyhorn with the Grass Terra Blast on the switch. Good read there. Yeah, I mean, I guess reading the Rhyhorn to switch in is not that hard, but they get the correct slot as well. Rhyhorn drops immediately to that Grass Terra Blast. We see an Instruct and a Grass Terra Blast into Bisharp. Does some decent chip. Bellibolt takes a fair bit of damage from the low kick, but with Wheezing off the field, it now does get its Electromorphosis charge. Girder coming in now. It'll just go for Wide Guard on Parabolic Charge. Solid read there from the Furrets, and an Instruct for another Parabolic Charge. Doesn't matter, still stopped by the Wide Guard, so Bisharp is free to attack here. It's another low kick into Bellibolt, almost KOs, but not quite. We see Girder get a Flame Orb burn now, and a Mach Punch will finish off the Bellibolt. So that Wide Guard prevented a ton of damage coming out from the other side, and Bellibolt will no longer be a threat in this game. Oranguru will finish off the Girder, but it's in danger against this Bisharp, which has just been clicking low kick this whole game, so might be choiced. We see Wheezing come back in now. We see Granbull on the other side. Is it Ability Shield Granbull? Well, either it isn't or it doesn't have Intimidate, but also why would you run Ability Shield without Intimidate? So I'm going to say it's not Ability Shield Granbull. It does just throw a close combat into the Bisharp and KOs it immediately, but what's Wheezing going to do? Well, get hit by a Psychic, but it's not a Poison type anymore. Takes that reasonably well. On this last turn of Trick Room, Sludge Bomb knocks out the -1 Special Defense Granbull. And Sludge Bomb into Bulldoze. The Weezing slowed down to the Oranguru. Oranguru will have the speed advantage. Psychic Crit there would have won the game on the spot, but instead Weezing survives, gets his Citrus Berry, lands a Sludge Bomb, poisons the Oranguru, and the Foraging Furrets will take game 1. If Oranguru hadn't been poisoned there, it would have had another chance at getting a Psychic Crit, but thanks to the Citrus Berry, that was the only way that Oranguru still won this. But a close game, both teams making some good reads, trading blows back and forth. We'll see what adjustments they find in game 2. But the Furrets seem like they have pretty solid answers to most of what the Bellibolt can throw at them so far. I mean, the Rhyhorn just dropped immediately to a Grass Terra Blast, but they still then got the Girder positioned to shut the Bellibolt down. Of course, the Bellibolt know now about the Wide Guard, so yeah, a lot of ways this could still go. Maybe we'll see Houndoom or Cramorant make an appearance this game, but one way to find out. We see Oranguru leading with Bellibolt against Bisharp and Weezing. Bisharp goes Terra Dark immediately and just one-shots the Oranguru with a Throat Chop, so there's not about to be any Trick Room this time probably. Weezing lands a Sludge Bomb into Bellibolt. It doesn't do very much, but it does not give the charge because Neutralizing Gas is stopping the Electromorphosis. But Weezing did not Terra Ground this game, so it will be hit by this Parabolic Charge, as will Bisharp. It does a little bit of chip. That said, I think this is choice banned Bisharp. Well, choice something, but then more likely banned, right? So with the Terra Dark, it's going to be doing a lot of damage to the Bellibolt and the Earthworm. Or alternatively, it can switch out and come back in and get the low kick if it wants, because there is no Terra Ground Blast into this Earthworm anymore. But yeah, I think the Bisharp just hits either one of these Pokemon extremely hard. Let's see what they go for. Weezing switches out. Okay, Rhyhorn in. Granbull does land an Intimidated Bisharp, but there's the Defiant. And that Throat Chop one-shots the Bellibolt. Now Granbull and Earthworm are all that remain for the big-time Bellibolt. We see Weezing come back in. We see Earthworm drop to a Throat Chop crit. Bisharp just one-shotting everything in sight. Not taking too much from that Rock Slide. It'll get a chance to Throat Chop the Granbull. Granbull survives with a resistance, but it'll drop to a Sludge Bomb from the Weezing. So maybe things play out somewhat differently if Earthworm doesn't get crit by that Throat Chop. They're kind of, well, they're saying it probably doesn't make a big difference in the chat. Maybe it would have been a small difference, but we never found out the Earthworm set, so it's hard to say. My guess is Iron Defense Body Press setup, but it maybe was something much less threatening to the Bisharp. I don't know. But after a back-and-forth game, trading reads in Game 1, the Bisharp just goes Terra Dark and blasts through the opposing team with well-positioned Weezing, making sure that they don't get things like Electromorphosis to help them hit back, but then also switching out at the right time so that Bisharp can get that Defiant boost from the Granbull. Really solid game from the Foraging Furrets. They take the set 2-0, and with that, Week 5 is finally complete, and we can move on to... And now it's Week 6 of this Prismatic Draft League regular season. We're definitely in the home stretch of the season right now, but as we go to the standings, you will notice once again there are still 3 undefeated teams. More than halfway through the season, the Ontario Minccinos have not lost a game, the Winchester Walreins have not lost a set, and Pendragon United haven't lost a set either. All of those teams at 5-0, the Minccinos on top on differential because... you don't ever lose differential when you don't ever lose a single game. A lot of other strong teams to look at here as well. The Tiny Crowns quietly sitting at 4-1, and then there's this glob of 3-2 teams over here. Halifax Masquerade Men, of course, I have already uploaded our Week 6 set. It was in Monday's video as always, so this table is not quite up to date as far as that team goes, and you can go see how Week 6 went for us back in that video. But going into the week, we were in a 3-way tie for 6th place, so effectively holding the last playoff spot, sharing it with both the Big Mode Bellibolt and the Iridescent Terapagos. That said, there are a lot of strong teams breathing down our necks, as always. The Hisuian Houndstones have put together a couple of wins after a start to the season that was tough in the win-loss column, but showed some strong performances all the way through. They are now finally starting to get those wins. We'll see if they can string some more together. The sinister Sinistcha, one of the teams I was most worried about going into the season, are right now on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, so we'll see whether they make a late charge this season. Drago's Children had a hot start and then kind of fell behind, but they can definitely put it back together once again. So there's still a lot of room for things to be shaken up as the season plays out. And I have been saying that I think 5-3 clinches a playoff spot, and I think 4-4 has a chance. But someone else, I think, actually checked the numbers. They brought this up in the Discord just a little bit ago. And it might actually, according to them, I haven't checked their math, it might actually be possible to go 5-3 and miss the playoffs. I don't know how likely it is that anyone will do that, but just shows what a competitive season it's been, that this playoff field still has so much room to be shaken up. That said, I think we can be pretty confident about some of the teams that will get in. There is one trade this week. The iridescent Terapagos have dropped Flapple and picked up Vileplume. This is another late recording. I'm recording this the day before it's going to go up, so in real time we're actually very close to the trade deadline now, and there has not been a trade for week 7, so this could very well be the last one of the entire season, or maybe someone will make some last minute moves, you never know. I once made a move that was... I once made a trade that was so last minute that it forced some clarification about when exactly the deadline actually is, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that this season. We'll see if anyone else does. That said, possible last trade of the season here, and we are at the late point in the season where some of the sets are starting to blur together in my mind, so I don't really know whether what I'm about to say is true, but I don't remember Flapple actually doing all that much for the Terapagos so far this season. It definitely stood out to me as one of the more notable Pokemon on the roster, but I can't really think of specific things that it's done, and I believe in the last set that I watched of theirs, there was a hustle miss that really put them in some trouble. So I can understand if they're not very high on Flapple's potential the rest of the way. Vileplume is a very interesting Pokemon. It's one of those B-tier chlorophyll Pokemon that I had my eye on when I drafted Torkoal in round 1, even though I never actually ended up taking any of them. But I think Vileplume definitely can be good in this format. It does get chlorophyll, as I said. Now, this is not a Sun team that has picked it up. I mean, a lot of teams can set manual Sun if they want, but I think that Vileplume is here more for its wide support move pool, very good at spreading status. I think it gets Strength Sap. It probably gets some other supports. I don't know off the top of my head, but definitely there's a lot that it can do to help its team out. And by the way, its hidden ability is Effect Spore, so if they're not running Chlorophyll, then we might even see some Effect Spore activations in the rest of the season, which could be a lot of fun. But yeah, I would expect to see Vileplume. I mean, it can attack for sure, but I would expect to see it in a support role, enabling Pokemon like Tauros, Oricorio, and maybe even Pikachu. And I think the coach might just be a little bit burned out on Flapple. Can't really blame them for that. Anyway, with that said, let's go to the replays. And this week it starts with the Azure Bay Chatots taking on the Winchester Walreins. The Chatots have brought a familiar core. Well, hold on. I just saw the Bastrodon and said familiar core, but actually this is a very different Chatots lineup compared to what we've seen before. There is the Bastrodon. It might be looking to set up as usual, but if it does, it will be enabled in doing that by, okay, wacky fake out support. But there's no Driftblim, and there's no Comfey this time. There is the Alchemy. It can set up itself with Acid Armor and Calm Mind. We've seen that pretty often in the PDL. Or it could click Decorate into not only Bastrodon, but also attackers like Passimian, Floatzel, and Thwackey. Passimian and Floatzel are both here, probably being more immediate offensive threats as usual. And then we actually see Litten. I did not remember that they had Litten. I don't know if it's appeared this season before. But of course, that is... If Torracat is Baby Incineroar, Litten is Baby Incineroar. Still gets Intimidate, still gets Fake Out, still probably gets Parting Shot. I think that's an Egg move. So there's a fair bit that it can do, but of course it doesn't have the stats that Incineroar has or the Dark typing. On the Walrein side, no Frostlass. There is the Abomasnow, but if it's setting up Snow, then it's probably setting its own Aurora Veil for something like Calm Mind, Vaporeon. The Fracture is here. It could be running a Choice Band like before, or it could be looking to set up itself. The Tauros has multiple options. But I do think there's some kind of setup mode on this team with the Abomasnow and no Frostlass, and especially with the Sentret offering Follow Me support. They do also have the Tailwind option with the Fletchinder, although we've seen Fletchinder come to sets before, but I can't think of a time we've seen it come to a game. Maybe at some point, but bulky setup seems to be more this team's thing, but we'll see exactly what mode they have in mind here. As we see Litten leading against Floatzel, or Litten leading with Floatzel against Sentret and Vaporeon. It could be that Calm Mind Vaporeon right away. The Litten's Intimidate doesn't really do anything significant here. By the way, everyone say hi back to this very nice cat. The Centret Frisks, we see Eviolite, Litten, Clear Amulet, Floatzel. Yep. Clear Amulet, Floatzel. What is that covering for? I mean, there's Feather Dance, Fletchinder. Oh, the Tauros gets Intimidate. They do have Intimidate. There is Feather Dance, Fletchinder, though. If they brought that, not going to work. Alright, Terra Ghost immediately on the Vaporeon. Avoids a Fake Out. Nice. Then we see Follow Me from the Centret. That'll redirect a Brick Break from Floatzel, and which will knock Centret down to its Sash as Vaporeon goes for a Substitute. Alright, will we see the Calm Mind next? Substitute Vaporeon next to Follow Me Centret is actually pretty scary. Floatzel knocks out the Centret, and Litten goes for Parting Shot, and I forget this interaction sometimes, but of course Sound Moves. I don't remember what generation this became a thing. Maybe Gen 6, maybe a little earlier, but Sound Moves do bypass Substitute, and Parting Shot is a Sound Move. Basically, the lore of the move is that you insult them and then run away, and that weakens their attacking power, so it bypasses the Substitute here. Vaporeon takes the stat drops, and Litten will switch out to Alchemy. Vaporeon gets a special attack right back with a Calm Mind, but it doesn't get the boost that it wants. We see Abomasnow come in now. Will it be Aurora Veil on top of Substitute and Calm Mind? Abomasnow takes that Brick Break pretty well with that Ice-type Snow defense boost. Vaporeon keeps going for Calm Mind, and we actually just see Abomasnow throw off a Blizzard. Chips these other two Pokemon. Alluring Voice from the Alchemy. Again, a Sound move, so it goes through that Substitute. The Chatots really were ready for Substitute shenanigans this week, I guess. And it's Life Orb Alchemy, so that is not here to decorate its teammates. Alluring Voice confuses Vaporeon. I think it confuses if the target had a stat boost in the same turn. Someone tell me if I have that wrong. I'm not going to check Bulbapedia because I am reasonably confident that that's correct. So Vaporeon clicking Calm Mind means that it's confused by the Alluring Voice, and that Substitute really is not doing very much for the Vaporeon so far in this game. Also, Floatzel having Brick Break, of course, means that if the Abomasnow does set Aurora Veil, then it will just be broken right away by the Brick Break. Good prep all around so far from the Chatots, and that's probably... Well, I don't know about probably. I don't know the Abomasnow set, but my guess is that's why it's not clicking Aurora Veil. We just see a Giga Drain into Floatzel, knocks it out with a crit. Don't know if the crit mattered. Vaporeon just goes for Scald into Alchemy, narrowly misses the KO. Another Alluring Voice, but Alchemy will drop to Life Orb damage here. And for all that I'm talking up the Chatots prep, and I am really liking it so far, they did just lose 2 Pokemon, so they only have 2 left compared to 3 on the other side. And I don't think Bastrodon is going to have a sound attack that does damage. I don't think Litten will be able to do damage with a sound attack either, though we'll still be able to use Parting Shot to weaken Vaporeon. But if you're the Chatots, you do need still to find damage here. And it might be tricky with these 2 Pokemon, but let's see. Abomasnow switching out to Tauros. No Intimidate, so it has a different ability. Comes in on a Fake Out. Vaporeon self-hits with Confusion. Bastrodon just throws off a Body Press, chips the Tauros. Tauros now going for Bulk Up. There is not that Alluring Voice to confuse it anymore. Litten goes for Parting Shot into Vaporeon. So yeah, they can weaken Vaporeon with that. Vaporeon also hurts itself in Confusion once again. And that does actually create some room for the Terra Water Bastrodon to set up with Iron Defense. There might not be great threats into Terra Water Bastrodon here anyway, but of course Vaporeon can burn it with Scald. That could be game-changing. Tauros taking a Body Press is also very good for the Walreins. But yeah, there's... It does not look like they have good damage into Bastrodon right now. But there is the Scald burn, so... Tauros takes another Body Press. That's still doing some damage after the Iron Defense boost. We see it's Cudchew Tauros. Eating that Citrus Berry. Litten showing Crunch. I think it used it before this turn. Well, definitely, because something got rid of the Substitute. But that means, importantly, when Bastrodon is relying on Iron Defense, especially when it's burned, there is still damage into the Terra Ghost Vaporeon with the Litten running Crunch. Of course, Litten, again, not a Dark type like Incineroar. But that damage is still adding up. We see the Scald does not get the KO on the Litten. But Tauros Body Press does. So Bastrodon... I don't know if Bastrodon can beat Vaporeon. As much as I've talked about there being kind of a lack of damage into the Bastrodon. I mean, it's non-zero damage. It is adding up, especially that Scald. Vaporeon has enough HP for another Substitute, and the Bastrodon, I don't know if it has a way to threaten Vaporeon. We've only seen 2 of its moves. Neither one does damage to Ghost types. So... yeah, so the Alchemy and Floatzel going down when they did seems to have been enough to let the Walreins back into the game. The Tauros does now finally drop to a Body Press. It took quite a while after that Scald burn. But does Bastrodon have a way to threaten Vaporeon? It also has to deal with Abomasnow, and we've seen Abomasnow use the Giga Drain already, so we don't find out whether Bastrodon can threaten Vaporeon. But all things considered, some really great prep that game from the Chatots, but still a pretty convincing win for the Walreins. You have to be feeling good about that Combine Vaporeon mode right now, given that there was so much disruption from sound moves, and it still set up and, well, the setup didn't do a ton, but it still pulled through just fine. I'm just going to quickly close my curtains before I move on to Game 2 because the sun is getting in my eyes. It's late in the day, and it is the time of day for that, the way my window is positioned. So 1 second. That's a lot better. Now I can properly watch these replays. Okay. We have now Game 2. And we'll see what the adjustments are. Litten leading with Alchemy this time against Fracture and Vaporeon. Okay, so we'll get a look at what the Fracture does. It does get intimidated in his first turn. Just throws off a first impression into Litten. Doesn't do very much. 2 bug resists on the Chatot side of the field, of course. We see Substitute from the Vaporeon, but Alchemy just breaks it with a Dazzling Gleam and knocks out Fracture. So whatever the game plan was for Fracture, I don't think that's how it was supposed to go. We see the Abomasnow come in here. Goes Terra Water immediately. On a Flare Blitz from Litten. This is an aggressive Litten with the Crunch and the Flare Blitz. Crunch, Flare Blitz, Fake Out, Parting Shot, right? We've seen all its moves. It really is Baby Incineroar here. But it'll get knocked out by a Scald. And Alchemy will take a lot from a Blizzard. But Alchemy going for the Combine now. We'll see if Passimian can give it some cover to set up some more. It certainly can, as Close Combat just knocks out the Abomasnow. And Vaporeon's Scald goes into Passimian, does big damage after the drops, but Alchemy gets a chance to throw a Dazzling Gleam at Vaporeon. Does not quite KO. We see Tauros come in now. Of course, the Vaporeon cannot Terra Ghost this game because the Abomasnow terrestrialized, so that could change things in the end game, but we'll see. As Passimian drops to a Body Press from Tauros, Alchemy drops, nope, does not drop to a Scald. Knocks out Vaporeon and does big damage to Tauros with the Dazzling Gleam. And all this was the first game was kind of a slower, grindier setup game with the Substitute Vaporeon. This one was a slugfest, and on turn 4, at the end of turn 4, we're already down to a 1v1 between Tauros and Bastrodon, but the Bastrodon is able to Terra Water again, right? Nothing else terrestrialize, and we saw that the Tauros doesn't do much damage to it after Terra, and there's no Vaporeon to burn the Bastrodon this time, so Tauros is probably going down fairly quickly, and I think we're going to Game 3. Unless Tauros, I was gonna say unless Tauros flinches the Bastrodon forever, but even then, Bastrodon just leftovers recovered off that Iron Head damage anyway. Now it gets an Iron Defense. That Body Press is not doing much. Bastrodon just pretty freely setting up here, not even really worried about a crit with these damage rolls. Does get flinched again, but again, the flinch does... it does negative damage after the leftovers. And so Bastrodon is free to just knock out this Tauros with the Body Press. We're going to Game 3. I do wonder whether we'll see the Terra Ghost Vaporeon setup again, because the Chatots, they had some answers to it, but none of them were quite convincing enough in the end. But one way to find out, Passimian leading this time with Thwackey, so a different look from the Chatots, against Sentret and Vaporeon once again. That Vaporeon mode is back. It is Choice Band Passimian, which I kind of figured after what happened last game, and it's Assault Vest Thwackey. Vaporeon goes Terra Ghost immediately. Sentret faked out. And Passimian has knockoff. Gets rid of Vaporeon's leftovers and does a lot of damage. And Vaporeon, it does get a Calm Mind and it does terrestrialize. But thanks to that Choice Banded Passimian, it's still in danger. And it only has recovery from this grassy terrain, which will only last so long. But also, these two Pokemon are threatening so much damage into it anyway. Of course, Sentret can click Follow Me here, but yeah, I don't know if Vaporeon can handle this Thwackey. Sentret gets knocked out by the knockoff. Thwackey will get a chance to attack Vaporeon. It goes for a Wood Hammer, lands it. Vaporeon is KO'd. And the Chatots are up 4 Pokemon to 2, and the Vaporeon mode has been stopped. Tauros and Abomasnow are the last 2 for the Walreins. Tauros going for that bulk up. Abomasnow taking that knockoff reasonably well, losing its Assault Vest. That means another knockoff will do less damage now that it doesn't have an item. Also takes a U-turn from the Thwackey. We see Alchemy come in into a Blizzard. The Blizzard crits Passimian, but it does not KO. I don't know what's with this simultaneous grassy terrain recovery on Showdown now. I don't really like it because I like these Showdown visual cues to tell me speed order, but you can still check the log, I guess. Anyway, that aside, we see Thwackey and Bastrodon switching in. Thwackey taking a fair bit from a body press. Of course, it's Assault Vest Thwackey, so not Eviolite. The Eviolite's probably on the Litten. Abomasnow goes for an Ice Weather Ball into what was Alchemy, right? Yeah, but Bastrodon's not taking much from that. This is the same turn. I just went back to double check what the original target was. Now we're caught up. Bastrodon goes Terra Water in front of the Abomasnow, kind of bold, but Abomasnow will get faked out by the Thwackey. The Walreins have already used their Terra, so there's no Terra Water from the Abomasnow, and if Bastrodon had been able to land a Body Press into Abomasnow, that would have been a very solid endgame position for the Chatots, as we know that the Tauros matches up very badly one-on-one into this Bastrodon. But Bastrodon gets flinched by Tauros' Iron Head. We've seen a lot of Iron Head flinches. Most of them haven't really accomplished anything. But this one might have given Abomasnow an opening to keep its team in this game. Let's see. Another Iron Head. Abomasnow takes a U-turn from Thwackey. We see the Passimian come in. Abomasnow goes for Giga Drain into Bastrodon. It does a lot of damage, but Abomasnow then knocked out by a Body Press, and Bastrodon will heal off enough damage that another Giga Drain would probably not have KO'd anyway. And the Chatots have once again put Tauros on an island in the endgame. The Alchemy is here too, but doesn't matter. Tauros versus Bastrodon. Bastrodon convincingly wins that 1v1. Alchemy actually gets the last KO with a Psychic and then drops its own Life Orb damage. But that Bastrodon has just been an absolute steel wall. Or really, I mean, it's been I think it terrestrialized every game. So, I don't know, a water wall that some of the Pokemon on the other side just couldn't break through. And Bastrodon, of course, was itself countered by Vaporeon, but I mean, then it comes down to positioning and how you maneuver your supports. And the offensive pressure from Passimian and Thwackey made the difference here in Game 3, clearing out the Vaporeon so that the Bastrodon endgame was safe to go ahead. And with that, the Winchester Walreins have taken their very first loss of the season. There have been a lot of storylines this season. It's hard to account for all of them. One has been the Chatots just rolling through recent weeks. I think they took a couple of losses early in the season, but they've really clearly gotten comfortable with this team. And the Bastrodon has been claiming a number of tough opponents over the last few weeks. And the most recent domino to fall is that Winchester Walreins undefeated record. So still one of the top teams in the league, an absolute threat to deal with week in, week out. Pretty much a lock to make the playoffs, I would think. But kind of a statement win for the Chatots here. Definitely keeping things interesting as we head down the stretch. Up next, we have Drago's Children taking on the Southern-style Grovyles. Drago's Children showing some familiar semi-Trick Room stuff with the Dusclops, the Slowbro, and the Magcargo. We once again have the Dragon duo of Dipplin and Sphylos. Dipplin, of course, able to use Super Sweet Syrup to lower the opponent's evasiveness so that Sphylos doesn't have to worry about missing with hustle-boosted attacks. And we have the Kleavor, which has just kind of been their main offensive engine through the season, taking a lot of KOs early in games, and probably looking to feast on this matchup. I mean, weak to Bug, weak to Rock, weak to Bug, weak to Bug, weak to Rock. The Medicham is potentially a threat to the Kleavor. Even then, the Kleavor, it's not like it resists the Kleavor's stabs. It does resist Rock, but not Bug. There's the Intimidate Masquerain. There are some ways that the Kleavor could be mitigated, but Kleavor looks like an absolute menace into this team. And if you get past that, there's still the Trick Room mode to deal with. And actually, this Sphylos looks pretty strong here, too. The Grovyles bringing a familiar 6. They have the size spam stuff with Indeedee and Calyrex. There could also be Expanding Force Medicham, although it hasn't been very convincing so far. Medicham, of course, being far stronger as a physical attacker. There's the Masquerain, which, again, it might be able to intimidate Kleavor or Sphylos. Maybe one of them has a clear amulet, but they can't both have that. But Masquerain, it's just so threatened by... if Masquerain can get set up just right, then it could be a threat here, but it really has to watch out for Kleavor and Magcargo. And then you have the duo of Grovyle and Charmeleon, which are interesting, but not super strong. We'll see what they can do here. Dusclops leading with Kleavor against Indeedee and Medicham. Is it Expanding Force Medicham again? It's got a Psychic Seed, which I think it had last week as well. We see Frisk on the Dusclops. We already know about the Medicham Psychic Seed. It is Life Orb Indeedee again. It's an interesting choice. We'll see what kind of damage it can do. This does look like big size spam damage here. The Medicham actually going for size shock into the Dusclops turn 1. Doesn't do a whole lot, while Indeedee protects. On an X Scissor from Kleavor. Dusclops gets the Trick Room set up. And then just helping hand into Kleavor. We're probably going to see a lot of damage coming up from this Kleavor right now. Alluring Voice Indeedee chips the Dusclops a little bit, but then it just gets obliterated by that Stone Axe. And now of course, there's Stealth Rock on the field, so Masquerain and Charmeleon are in a lot of danger unless they have heavy-duty boots. And if there's something like a Focus Sash Grovyle, it'll get its Sash broken. Do you see the Expanding Force from Medicham? It does some chip. We see the Charmeleon. It does take that Stealth Rock damage. Terra Steel, okay. That could be useful. Terra Steel could be pretty reasonable here. We see Haze from... Yeah, to help it deal with the Kleavor. We see Haze from the Dusclops. I think the only stat change was Medicham's special defense boost from the Psychic Seed. Yeah, well, but that is gone now. Maybe setting up for something in the back like Macargo. Stone Axe to Charmeleon still does a fair bit of damage, but the Steel Terra Blast gets the KO on Kleavor. Nice tech there from the Grovyles. And the Dusclops is being worn down by that Expanding Force, but now we see Slowbro come in. There's still a couple turns of Trick Room. Macargo switches in. Expanding Force from the Slowbro. Knocks out Charmeleon, but not quite Medicham. Expanding Force back. Big damage, but no KOs. Grovyle switching in. If it has a Focus Sash, the Sash is broken. Doesn't matter. It survives the Slowbro Expanding Force anyway, but Medicham does not. And a Macargo Heat Wave will connect and knock out the Grovyle. So exactly the kind of game that you want to be playing as Drago's Children. The Kleavor threatening massive damage early on, creating openings for Dusclops to set the Trick Room, and then the Trick Room mode closing things out. Let's see what the Grovyles have for that in Game 2. I do like the Terra Steel Charmeleon. That was pretty cool. But we'll see what else we get here. Dusclops leading with Slowbro against Medicham and Masquerain this time. So that would intimidate the Kleavor, potentially. I don't think we saw Kleavor's item. Maybe I just missed it. Did it click Stone Axe every turn? I don't remember. So potentially intimidating the Kleavor if it doesn't have a clear amulet, but they don't lead Kleavor this time. As we see Focus Sash on the Masquerain, not the Grovyle, okay. Air Slash and Shadow Ball into Dusclops does decent damage with a chance to flinch. Oh, a special defense drop too from the Shadow Ball. Dusclops does not flinch, it just goes for Poltergeist into Medicham. And Slowbro sets the Trick Room. Then we see the Haze, which gets rid of the attack drop on Slowbro. And Slowbro goes for Shell Sidearm. Okay, so I believe Shell Sidearm works like Necrozma's signature move, Photon Geyser, where whether it's a physical or special attack depends on which will do more damage. Also like Terra Blast when you're Terastallized. So I guess getting rid of the Intimidate drop allows for that physical Shell Sidearm to do the damage you want. In any case, you get some good chip on the Masquerain. The Dusclops is still being worn down. Oh, Dusclops did also get rid of its own special defense boost, or drop. I forgot about that, but it does take another one from this Shadow Ball. Slowbro takes a Bug Buzz. Both teams trading blows. Dusclops gets rid of the drop once again. A Shell Sidearm from Slowbro will knock out the Medicham. Does Shell Sidearm have different animations depending on whether it's physical or special? Did we see that there? I know I went back too far. It was the same animation both times. I don't know. Anyway, Shell Sidearm knocks out the Medicham. Slowbro takes a Bug Buzz. That poison typing coming in handy. We see the Charmeleon come in, go Terra Steel immediately. It's Assault Vest Charmeleon, as revealed by the Poltergeist there. Slowbro knocks out the Masquerain, but it gets knocked out back by Charmeleon's Heat Wave. Dusclops is pretty low, but there's still one turn of Trick Room left. The Indeedee comes in here. The Medicham is not here to get the Psychic Seed boost. Indeedee and Charmeleon against pretty much the world here. They don't have to deal with the Slowbro, but there are still the other Pokemon. Dusclops switching out to Applin. We have the Macargo here. So that's super sweet. Syrup will make sure the Heat Wave connects, I think. We see Terra Psychic on the Macargo. Well, that'll help it take a Psychic type attack from Indeedee. Heat Wave, not having to worry about missing after the Evasiveness drop. Knocks out the Steel type Charmeleon. And it's just Indeedee now. Alluring Voice into a Protect. There is no Trick Room anymore, but the Indeedee just doesn't have enough damage. I mean, that Fairy type attack just now did less than half to what I assume is Eviolite Applin. Applin gets the last KO with a Leaf Storm. And Drago's Children take the 2-0 win. Definitely something they needed to get their season back on track, and we'll see if they can build on it over the remaining 2 weeks. Up next, we have the Hisuian Houndstones taking on the Alberta Applin. The Houndstones, I mean, we're pretty familiar with what this team does now. I think they have flexible speed control with probably either Flamigo or Vivillon carrying Tailwind. Possible Trick Room on the Slowbro or even the Indeedee. There's no Bronzong this week, but they still can set up Trick Room for Slowbro or Piloswine somehow or other. They have fast support in the Salazzle. Salazzle can also try to snipe the grass types on the other team. But, of course, the Applin have a lot of fire types as well as grass types. And Salazzle is not necessarily a great offensive threat into Pokemon like Carkol, but it has that fake out support. It can poison things. It can help its teammates wear things down. Otherwise, yeah, they can go fast with Flamigo. They can go slow with Piloswine and Slowbro. Either one of those modes looks very threatening into the Applin lineup. The Applin have left the Tropius behind this time. They have once again the Volbeat as a possible Tailwind and or Sunsetter. They have Fire-type spam with Flareon, Quilava, and this week also Carkol. Carkol is an interesting bring. It has some issues with Flamigo and Piloswine and Slowbro, but it can certainly be strong into some of the other Pokemon on the Houndstone side, like that Vivillon and that Salazzle. And then we do see the Darkspawn as well. So, of course, Quilava or Flareon, I think, also gets Lava Plume. Can use Lava Plume to boost Darkspawn's defense with the well-baked body. And then Darkspawn actually might be able to sit on the field and cause a lot of trouble for Pokemon like Flamigo and Piloswine. It makes sense to bring when your opponent has those strong physical attackers, but there is also strong special offense on the Houndstone side, and that might be where the Salazzle is offensively useful into that Fairy type. There's also the Breloom being kind of a wild card with Spore and strong Mach Punch and stuff. So we'll see what actual plans these teams have for each other. Double fire lead from the Applin with Quilava and Flareon against Flamigo and Salazzle from the Houndstones. Immediate fake out into Flareon. Close combat just one-shots the Clefable, I was about to say, the Quilava. So we don't get to see what they're cooking with that this turn, but I will note that Flamigo moved before Quilava, so Choice Scarf is kind of an obvious item on Quilava, but the only way it could be Scarfed here is if the Flamigo is as well, which is entirely possible, but that means either one coach or the other just got a lot of information from that interaction. Either the Houndstones now know that it's not Scarf Quilava, or the Applin now know that it is Scarf Flamigo. From my Monday morning quarterback seat, more like Thursday evening quarterback this week, I don't know which it is, but it's important for somebody. Flareon will just flinch here. We see the Darkspawn switch in. Darkspawn goes straight for a substitute. Okay. But that's immediately broken by that Sludge Bomb from Salazzle. Darkspawn being faster than Salazzle is a little bit interesting. Their base speeds soon to be closer than I would have guessed, but yeah, that's interesting. Flamigo just knocks out the Flareon. It's just throwing off those close combats. It could be Scarf. Oh no, it's Life Orb. Wait, I did that whole spiel and I hadn't noticed the Life Orb damage. Well, if I ever make a blooper reel of these, that's going in there for sure. So it's not Scarf Quilava confirmed. I do know which it is. I just hadn't noticed yet. Okay, Breloom is here. Body Press into Salazzle. That's not going to do very much. It's probably not even going to do very much to Flamigo, even though Flamigo's at -2 defense. The Sludge Bomb will take out the Darkspawn. And Flamigo really rubbing in for me that it's definitely not Choice, and I do know that by now. Knocking Breloom out with a Brave Bird. So just this, it's Effect Spore Breloom. Wow, Effect Spore Breloom, and it puts the Flamigo to sleep, but too late, as Flamigo and Salazzle have just swept through this Arcanine team. So not Scarf Quilava. We don't really have any information on the Flareon set. The Darkspawn is faster than Salazzle, but whatever it was going for with the substitute, it did not manage to pull off, and it didn't Terrasilize, so no insight. It kind of suggests that its Terra type is not useful in this position, whatever that Terra type is. And Effect Spore Breloom is really something. Maybe that'll come in clutch in game 2. Let's find out. Volbeat leading this time with Breloom against Flamigo and Indeedee. Okay. Tailwind from the Volbeat. And just a Rock Slide from the Breloom. It does some chip, but that Expanding Force back from Indeedee is doing a lot more. Breloom is just knocked out. Volbeat took a lot. Brave Bird from the Flamigo, finishing the Volbeat off. The Flamigo has been an absolute menace this week. As we see Flareon and Quilava, the last two Pokemon for the Applin. Again, forget anything I ever said about a Choice Scarf, but we know that Flamigo is faster than Quilava. Terra Psychic, Quilava, we've seen that a lot from the Applin. In this case, it will resist that Expanding Force, and also a close combat. I don't know how well Quilava will take an attack. I mean, maybe it has the Eviolite, I don't know, but yeah, the Terra Psychic is here. We see Wide Guard from the Flamigo, though, covering for an Eruption, I assume. Or a Lava Plume. Okay, Lava Plume Flareon. Ah, okay, I see. So the Lava Plume is here not only to boost the Darkspawn, it also boosts the Flash Fire Quilava. but it does no damage because of the Flamigo's wide guard. So good heads-up play there from the Houndstones. The Eruption will also do nothing. That's a brave Eruption to click when you know that you're slower than the Flamigo. Oh, no, wait, they have Tailwind. I'm really not on my game this set. They have Tailwind. They're faster than the Flamigo. That's why they click the wide guard. But they did have the benefit of stopping that Lava Plume, as well as the Eruption. And Expanding Force back from the Indeedee will do a lot to Flareon. It'll weaken that Eruption from Quilava. Quilava takes it pretty well, being a Psychic type now, but even so. Flamigo clicks another wide guard. Flareon goes for Facade, but Flareon has not activated a status. Still not running the Toxic Orb, and it could be Terra Normal Flame Orb like we've seen from this team many weeks, but we're not going to find out because Quilava is Terastallized. So Flamigo takes that Facade. Quilava is still just going for Eruption. Flareon's knocked out. Quilava not choiced at all, not running specs either, as it does now go for Extra Sensory into Flamigo. That'll remove the wide guard from the board, but it is, I think, too little too late, as this Psyshock from Indeedee crits the Quilava and knocks it out. Even if that had not KO'd, who knows what Pokemon the Houndstones have in the back, but I think that Quilava is probably in danger. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Salazzle again, just outspeed the Quilava, KO with Sludge Bomb, or with Fire Attack. After the Tailwind has ended, of course. I have not forgotten about the Tailwind a second time, but it is nearly over. And so the Hisuian Houndstones, I think, started the season with a 3-set losing streak, now on a 3-set winning streak. Pulling to 500 and definitely looking like a threat the rest of the way. Up next, we have the Big Mode Bellibolt taking on the Tiny Crowns. The Bellibolt, they brought the Growlithe, the Fletchling, and the Ditto. This is an interesting lineup. It certainly looks like a Sun team, right? With Houndoom, their other fire type, Victory Bell, potentially running Chlorophyll, some way to set Sunny Day, probably. I mean, multiple of these Pokemon can use it. Maybe not, actually, because you have the Clef Key for Manual Tailwind. Maybe then it's not a Chlorophyll Victory Bell game plan. These are definitely some very Sun-coded Pokemon, but maybe it's not a Sun game plan. They also have the Cramorant, of course, which can throw off those strong water attacks into Sandslash and Camerupt, and depending on what water attacks it throws off, maybe also have some fun with Gulp Missile. Gulp Missile could be interesting, actually, into this team with the fake-out duo of Raichu and Persian. But, yeah, I'm convincing myself. Maybe it's not a Sun mode. But certainly some interesting offensive fire, water, grass types available here. And then the Ditto is really interesting in this matchup. I'm not sure what specifically they want to copy with it, if there is anything specific. Some of the obvious threats, like the Hisuian Lilligant, are not here this week anyway, but we'll see if the Ditto gets some play. On the Crowns side, yeah, it's the fake-out duo of Raichu and Persian, able to create openings for... Well, they have a possible Trick Room game plan with Camerupt and Chimecho. Chimecho able to set Trick Room, and then it has Levitate, so you can click Earthquake with Camerupt. Camerupt will underspeed, I think, anything in this matchup. And, yeah, can do big damage to the opponents and nothing to its partner. Sandslash is pretty slow and strong attacker as well. Lumineon. Yeah, the game plans are not super clear. I think Trick Room stuff from the Crowns is likely, supported by double Fake Out. And I don't know, just trying to hit things hard from the Bellibolt, but then what's the Growlithe doing here? We'll find out, I'm sure. Fletchling leading with Houndoom against Sandslash and Raichu here. Fletchling just protects around the Fake Out, and Houndoom goes straight for an Overheat into Sandslash, which almost KOs, but not quite, so Houndoom will get KO'd back by that Drill Run crit. That's a rough first turn for the Bellibolt. We see Victory Bell come in here, though. Looks pretty well positioned against these two Pokemon. Goes for the Giga Drain to finish off the Sandslash, but Sandslash protects around it. However, Fletchling has set Tailwind, so Victory Bell, yeah, looks like it's in a strong spot the rest of the way. Fletchling is one-shot by that Volt Switch crit from the Raichu, but the Tailwind is already up. But the Persian will come in here. It'll have the opportunity to click Fake Out and stall out Tailwind turns, and the Raichu in the back can come in and do the same thing. All of that said, the Ditto now has come in for the Fletchling, and it has transformed into Persian, so it might even be able to outspeed the Persian, or win a speed tie, or it might have a Choice Scarf and fake out their Fake Out if it wants, or maybe they have a better plan in mind for the Ditto. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Crowns deal with this Tailwind from here, as it doesn't look like they brought a Trick Room mode to this game. I don't know what the 4th Pokemon is, but they don't have both Camerupt and Chimecho, that's for sure. Victory Bell goes Terra Poison, okay. Looking for a damage boost on a Sludge Bomb into Persian probably. Ditto goes for the Fake Out, but it's into Sand Slash, and that means Persian does get to KO, not KO, Fake Out Victory Bell. Ditto's Fake Out did go, well, it's Tailwind, it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually tell us anything yet that Ditto's Fake Out went first. That was given because of the Tailwind, so it's all unclear whether it's a Scarf Ditto. Nope, it's definitely not a Scarf Ditto, as it goes for Knock Off to knock off the knock out the Sand Slash. So it did switch moves there. We see the Terra Poison Sludge Bomb into Persian. Doesn't do a lot, but it does get the poison. Leftovers, Victory Bell gets this item knocked off. So I'm not sure about this Victory Bell. I'm not sure what they're cooking with this Victory Bell set. It looks offensive. Certainly it looks like it has to be one of the main offensive threats on the team, but leftovers for the item. Interesting. We'll see what other moves we potentially see besides Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb. You see the Camerupt is the last Pokemon here. So it is a Camerupt. Well, maybe not a Camerupt game plan, but the Camerupt is here with no Trick Room, but again, that double Fake Out support. That said, Persian is getting a little bit low, being worn down by the poison damage. Ditto knocks off the Camerupt, removes a Quick Claw. Alright. Well, that's one way to make up for not bringing Trick Room. It was Quick Claw Camerupt, but we won't see it activate in this game. Victory Bell's Giga Drain does not get the KO, though. Some good damage. Persian U turns out, chips the Ditto a little bit, probably with the fur coat there. Yeah, probably his fur coat. It definitely doesn't have Rattled. We see the Raichu come in. And Camerupt Earth Power into the pure Poison type Victory Bell. So Victory Bell has switched off its Fire weakness, but in doing so it's created a Ground weakness. It is now knocked out. Will not get to finish the Camerupt off. And Ditto's the last Pokemon. It is permanently transformed into Persian, so I think it's going to be hard-pressed to deal with this Camerupt from here. We see Fake Out, Earth Power, big damage. Ditto survives, but the Tailwind is gone, and with the Volt Switch, Raichu gets the final KO, and the Tiny Crowns take Game 1. That Quick Claw Camerupt is a threat in any kind of speed conditions, but we'll see how the Bellibolt adjusts here in Game 2. Maybe we'll see the Cramorant. Maybe we'll see the full extent of the Victory Bell game plan. Maybe the Houndoom will get a little bit more of a chance to do something now that they know that the Overheat is not a safe one-shot into the Sand Slash. We do see Fletchling and Cramorant leading, though, against Raichu and Lumineon. Okay, interesting. Cramorant protects and stops the Fake Out. That means Fletchling, once again, does get to set that Gale Wings priority Tailwind. Lumineon just Tailwinds right back, though. Okay. We see Ditto transforming into Raichu this time, once again, picking a Fake Out user. We'll see if it can create an opening for this Victory Bell. It does also stop the Raichu's Volt Switch, though, and gets a special attack boost. That's a really cool Ditto play, actually. I wonder whether that's a big part of what the Ditto was brought for this week. Being able to make it hard for the Raichu to pivot out and getting boosted in the process. I mean, I don't know if Raichu has another attack to really spam there. Of course, the Ditto can't really safely click Volt Switch itself when the Raichu is threatening the same counterplay, but yeah, an interesting disruption to the Crown's game plan there for sure. We'll see what they do with it. Chilling Water into Victory Bell, but the Victory Bell has only shown special attacks before, so I doubt it's too worried about that. See a nice Fake Out into the Raichu, does some decent damage, but Ditto gets Encored, so now it's locked into Fake Out. Victory Bell, Giga Drain, not doing a ton to Lumineon there, and it's Red Card Lumineon. I have to shout out the Tiny Crowns. They've been bringing some crazy items in recent weeks. There was that Ring Target Arbok last week. We never found out what it was for, but we did notice that it was there. And then the Quick Claw Camerupt this week, and now Red Card Lumineon, forcing Victory Bell off the field. Maybe meant to force a boosted Bellibolt to switch out, but of course they didn't bring the Bellibolt this week. Really creative stuff with those item slots in back-to-back weeks now. You love to see it. I mean, that's kind of what draft is all about, right? Cramorant coming in here. Of course, it's not afraid of the Raichu Volt Switch when there's this Raichu on the field with it. So if Ditto just stays in and clicks Fake Out, it doesn't really do anything, but it does stop a Volt Switch into Cramorant. They could have Electro Web, and then that would still hit Cramorant. Cramorant will only be single weak now, though, to Electric, because it has terrestrialized into the Flying type, so it's now only a Flying type and not a Water type. You see Helping Hand into the Raichu. Is it Electro Web? No, it's Surf. Ooh, and the Cramorant just turned off its water resistance. Still doesn't take too much, though. Ice Beam into Lumineon. Not sure what they were going for there. Maybe thinking that there would be some kind of Terra. Or maybe that's just all they have, because the Lumineon could have... Apparently it does have Storm Drain. When was that confirmed? Oh, just now. The Raichu Surf boosted its partner Lumineon. That's really cool. Yeah, so the Cramorant can't just click water attacks in front of... There are so many... We have Lightning Rod, Storm Drain. Nope. Lightning Rod, Storm Drain. Those are the right Pokemon on the field all at the same time. This is a messy position. It's hard to get your head around this one. Can't safely click Volt Switch. Can't safely click Volt Switch. Can't safely click Water Attack. But this can click Water Attack and boost his partner. There's a lot going on here. What's the Cramorant doing? Oh, right. It's just Ice Beam Lumineon. The problem is that doesn't do very much damage. Maybe it'd be better off Ice Beaming the Raichu. I don't know. Ditto switching out now, so the position will get a little bit less wild as the Victory Bell comes back in. Lumineon gets another boost. The Surf doesn't do very much damage to Victory Bell. We see a Citrus Berry on the Cramorant. Chilling Water into Cramorant. Air Slash into Lumineon. So it does have Air Slash. I wonder whether that Ice Beam was a misclick. Unless there's something they were trying to cover for, but I can't think of what. I mean, if Sand Slash switches in, it takes more from Ice Beam, but Air Slash will still hurt. They don't have a Flying Resist, except this, which is already here on the field, so it can't switch into here. So yeah, maybe that Ice Beam was a misclick. I don't know. But Lumineon does drop to this Air Slash now, so it won't get to make the most of those Storm Drain boosts. Victory Bell looks reasonably well positioned. Persian comes in. Fletchling switches back in. We see Ditto copying Raichu again, taking a fake out. Fair bit of damage from it, but stopping another Volt Switch. That Raichu just can't get a break. Another Tailwind from the Fletchling. This time the Ditto goes for Surf. Honestly, it did more damage to its partner than anything else, but the Raichu Surf will... actually knock out both Ditto and Fletchling. No more Ditto shenanigans in this game, and no more Lightning Rod on the Bellibolt side. So the Cramorant will have to face the Raichu without that cover. Victory Bell protecting this turn. Raichu also protecting. Of course, the Tailwind is still up, so Raichu is threatened by Cramorant's Surf, as Cramorant now is able to click that with the Lumineon gone. Cramorant is in the Pikachu range for its HP, so it gets a Pikachu from its Gulp Missile. Takes a Snarl immediately. Doesn't like the special defense drop, special attack drop, but that Pikachu will paralyze the Persian. What a chaotic game. An Air Slash crit knocks out Raichu. I mean, at this point, sure, why not? And with Persian being paralyzed, Victory Bell gets to go next to knock it out with a Giga Drain. I know the Tailwind is still up. Victory Bell gets to go next to knock Persian out with the Giga Drain. And Sand Slash is the last Pokemon from the for the Crowns. Could you imagine if it were the Camerupt and the Quick Claw activated and it got 2 Heat Wave KOs or Eruption? Can you imagine Quick Claw, Camerupt, Eruption winning this game for the Crowns? Unfortunately, you do just have to imagine it because it's not what's going to happen. Instead, Terra Dragon Sand Slash, but it gets smacked by an Ice Beam immediately. It does take that Giga Drain and knock out the Cramorant, but I think a Victory Bell Sludge Bomb ought to close this one out. Yep, Victory Bell coming through, and the Big Mode Bellibolt take Game 2, and we're going to Game 3, and I do not have the foggiest idea what's going to happen. That was a wild Game 2. Lightning Rod and Storm Drain everywhere, Pikachu flying around the field, out of Cramorant's mouth. Tailwinds being set up all over the place. That was just a shootout. We'll see if we get another one here. I'm so stressed right now. I do not blame you, Panda. Anyway, Ditto leading this time next to Fletchling. We'll find out what the Ditto turns into. Turns into Chimecho. All right. So the Crown's bringing the Trick Room mode this time. But the Ditto could disrupt it because the Ditto could click Trick Room. Maybe the Chimecho even has Imprison. I think it gets that move. I wouldn't bet that it does have it, but yeah, it's actually not going to be that easy to just set up the Trick Room when there's a copy of the Chimecho on the other side of the field. Ditto goes Terra Dragon immediately. Terra Dragon Ditto, so covering for, well, yeah, covering for a lot of things the other team can throw at it, like Lilligant Leaf Blade, Raichu Volt Switch, when Ditto's not transformed into Raichu, Golduck Hydro Pump or something. Okay. And it's not Scarf Ditto, so it might have to take hits here and there. We do see Heat Wave from the Camerupt. The Fletchling set up Tailwind. You see Psychic Noise from Ditto. Does a third to Camerupt. And it's Trick from the Chimecho. It's Trick, Scarf, Chimecho. So Ditto did not have a Choice Scarf all this time, but it does now. Of course, it's not locked into a move just yet because it used Psychic Noise before it used... before it got the Choice Scarf. But if this does have Trick Room, then it's a lot safer to set it up now. That said, Psychic Noise, Trick Room. Now we'll see. Maybe it doesn't have Trick Room, and... Oh, okay. We'll talk about this in a second, what just happened there. But maybe it doesn't have Trick Room, and it is just the Quick Claw Camerupt with the Fake Out support that's supposed to one way or another break through. But actually, I did not think about this play. I missed this one. Good job spotting it, Panda. The Chimecho or the Ditto can just trick the Choice Scarf right back onto the real Chimecho. And it does here. It gets its Focus Sash back. Fletchling knocks itself out with a Brave Bird into Camerupt. Doesn't quite KO, but it actually does a lot of damage. Ditto will take a Psychic Noise here. Chimecho now locked into Psychic Noise. Of course, I still don't know its other two moves. Panda does. So if there was any kind of Trick Room influence on the trick play there, I can't be sure. Ditto with the Dragon Terror will take that Heat Wave. You see Cramorant come in. Of course, the Chimecho, well, the Tailwind's still up, but Chimecho having its Scarf back is something I'll have to account for the rest of the way. Victory Bell switches in, interesting, into I think what could easily be a Psychic Noise into this slot, but we'll see. Protect on the Camerupt, Surf on the Cramorant. Chips the Chimecho. It is a Psychic Noise into that slot. Victory Bell does survive, though. There's one turn of Tailwind left, but Victory Bell just protects through it. As its partner goes for another Surf, knocks out Camerupt. Chimecho lands a Psychic Noise into Victory Bell. Of course, it hits a Protect, but now the Tailwind is going to end. Fletchling is not here to set it back up, and Chimecho, of course, does have that Choice Scarf. And there's Fake Out cover from the Raichu. With Victory Bell having just protected, it doesn't have much it can do about the Fake Out, although it's probably just going to get knocked out by Psychic Noise here either way. So Cramorant protects around the Fake Out. Might as well Fake Out that slot. Psychic Noise does knock out the Victory Bell. Ditto will transform into Chimecho again, but it'll be slower than the real Chimecho as Cramorant just gets knocked out by a Volt Switch. It does get one last Gulp Missile off, but that's the only damage Raichu is taking in this game. It's not really too bothered as we see the Persian come in to sit on the field at the end. But that Choice Scarf Chimecho, again, I don't know all of its moves, and Panda does know all of its moves in this position. But I thought the trick play made sense if it was a Trick Room Chimecho setting that up for Camerupt. I am now not convinced that the Chimecho had Trick Room. I think it might have just been a Scarf attacker. And so giving the Choice Scarf back meant that it was able to outspeed everything once the Tailwind ended and get those last knockouts, especially into Victory Bell, with Victory Bell switching in on the Psychic Noise. But yeah, we're really... this was a wild set, just chaos all the way through, and really... we're really running into the limits of what I can do with limited information here, knowing less about some parts of this matchup than both of the players did. But it sure was fun to watch. And the Tiny Crowns are now, I think, 5-1. I haven't been talking them up as much as some of the other teams because they're not undefeated, but they're close to undefeated. That is 4 guaranteed, even with the Walreins losing and uncertain results for the Minccinos and United because we haven't gotten to them yet. That is guaranteed 4 teams at 5-1 or better, which is just nuts. Seriously impressive from all of them. Up next, we have still no Minccinos and still no United, as it's the West Coast Pincurchins taking on the Iridescent Terapagos. Pincurchins, once again, bringing that Plusle. I don't think we saw it do anything last week, but hopefully we will this time, because I'm always curious when I see an unusual Pokemon like that. But there's also no Tatsugiri this week. They have their other offensive engines, Golurk and Leafeon, both like to just claim a bunch of KOs against opponents. Gengar does as well. I'm never really sure of the synergies with this team, but they have strong Pokemon that hit hard and blow things up, and with the Talonflame setting Tailwind, that can certainly enable that mode. But they also have the Stantler this week, able to set Trick Room against things like Surge Surfer, Raichu, and Quibberdance, or Ikorio. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Trick Room game plan from the Pincurchins. On the Terapagos side, yeah, they are dealing with that Talonflame Tailwind, I think, by bringing the Pincurchin to set Electric Terrain for the Alolan Raichu, which will get its speed doubled in Electric Terrain with the Surge Surfer ability. We do see Raichu possibly with Fake Out, Clefable probably with Follow Me, able to create openings for Oricorio potentially to set up. And Oricorio can give a lot of trouble to Pokemon like Leafeon, Gengar, and even Golurk, although that matchup's a little bit shakier. Oricorio being immune to ground certainly helps. The Tauros could be running Intimidate to make it that much harder for Golurk to do big damage, but we also do see the Vileplume making its season debut here, potentially threatening status moves into a lot of different Pokemon, including Stantler. Might have a way to deny Trick Room with like a Sleep Powder or something. But also that Grass and Poison coverage is not bad into Pokemon like Golurk and Leafeon. So let's see. Pincurchin leading with Clefable. The Electric Train will go right up against Talonflame and Gengar. Talonflame just switches out, no Tailwind, as Gengar goes straight for a Sludge Bomb that almost but not quite knocks out Clefable. They do have the Sludge Bomb this week, and it is a threat, but not quite threatening enough this turn. Life Orb Gengar, okay. And Citrus Berry Clefable. Gengar just gets knocked out by a Zing Zap from Pincurchin, so we won't see a second Sludge Bomb this game. Also, Clefable has set up Reflect. That's going to make Golurk's job harder. We see Leafeon switch in. We see Oricorio switch in. Leafeon coming in to replace the fainted Gengar. Clefable taking that Leaf Blade. That's 2 turns in a row that Clefable has survived a hit on 2% HP, right? The Sludge Bomb knocked it down to 2, then it ate its Berry. And now, thanks to the Reflect, it takes exactly 25% from the Leaf Blade, and it's still here. Golurk goes for high horsepower into what was Pincurchin, but now it's Oricorio, so there's that immunity. Golurk gets chipped by a Flamethrower from Clefable. Oricorio just protecting on a knockoff from Leafeon. Golurk will finally get the KO into Clefable, but this allows the Terapagos to reposition. We see the Raichu come in. We see it knock out the Golurk with Grass Knot. Again, Raichu outspeeding everything here. Raichu has a high base speed. I think it has the same base speed as Gengar. It does, yeah. So if Talonflame had set Tailwind and Gengar were still here, then it would potentially be a speed tie between Raichu and Gengar, but neither of those things happened, so we don't get to know for sure. Golurk knocked out by that Grass Knot. The knockoff doesn't actually do all that much in Oricorio. It does remove leftovers, so we see the leftovers. We think set up Oricorio, and sure enough, here's a Quiver Dance, which is Talonflame and Leafeon left on the other side. Talonflame showing the Ground Terra. Okay. So potentially able to surprise the Raichu, but Raichu just protects through this turn. The Electric Terrain is about to end as well, unless it's Terrain Extender Pincurchin, which it could be. Just a double protect from the Iridescent Terapagos as Leafeon goes for Dig. Leafeon showing some coverage that you might not have remembered it has. Able to land that ground type attack into the Raichu, which did just protect. So it has a chance to fail if it tries to protect this next turn. And the Talonflame is a ground type as well. But Talonflame is probably not very heavy. I don't know the calculation, but I wouldn't bet it takes a ton from Grass Knot. So Raichu is actually in an awkward position here. And it actually switches out to Pincurchin. Not trying the Grass Knot. We see Terra Water on the Oricorio. That does not do anything to help it take a Brave Bird, and it's going to be threatened by the Leafeon now, especially with the Tailwind up. Water-type Revelation Dance, though, does knock out the Talonflame, but can Leafeon close this one out? I think it's possible. It does Leaf Blade into a Protect here, though. Oricorio goes, Pincurchin goes for a Memento. Nice attack. That'll significantly lower Leafeon's attack stat, and with the Electric Terrain back up, Raichu will outspeed Leafeon. What does it have? Thunderbolt. Okay. It's resisted, but it still does decent damage in the terrain. Leaf Blade will knock out the Oricorio, though. Life Orb Raichu. Life Orb Raichu. Thunderbolt, unless it crits, should not KO Leafeon here, so we'll just have to see, I think, what a knockoff does back. Leafeon survives. That's that. Life Orb damage is adding up. Never mind, they don't have to go for knockoff, they can go for dig. Which is stronger? I feel like knockoff is probably stronger when Raichu is an item, right? But, I don't know. I don't remember the numbers. You know what I always say here, numbers are some of the least interesting parts of Pokemon to me, but I think knockoff with the boost into an item is stronger than dig, yeah? I don't remember dig's base power. I don't think it's super high. Anyway, Raichu protects on the dig, so wait. That's the more important thing. The Raichu has Protect. Leafeon had a chance to click Knockoff. Never mind base power. Raichu could just Protect to get around the dig and then knock Leafeon out with a Thunderbolt from there. So yeah, that dig was not the right call from the Pincurchins. I don't know whether Knockoff would have won the game. It wasn't -2. I don't know how bulky this Raichu is or anything. But yeah, that dig just shut down hard by Protect. You just had to go for Knockoff there. And if you needed a crit, you just had to hope for it. But we are going to game 2. I mean, that was a close game, even if it didn't go the Pincurchins' way in the end. So we'll see what adjustments they come up with here. Tauros leading next to Raichu against Leafeon and Gengar. Leafeon did a fair bit of work in that last game, so makes sense to give it another shot here. But it will get intimidated immediately by the Tauros. Tauros switching out to Oricorio. No sign of Pincurchins so far, so Raichu will not get the Electric Terrain boost. Again, it could be speed tying with Gengar. We'll see. Gengar does go before Raichu, knocks it out with a Shadow Ball crit. I don't know whether that's a speed tie or not. I don't know how those Pokemon are invested. Gengar might just be faster. I feel like my instinct in this matchup, considering the Tailwind on one side, the Electric Terrain on the other side, would be to run max speed on both of those Pokemon. So personally, my guess is that it's probably a speed tie, but I don't know for sure. What I do know is that Raichu is gone now. Gengar just wiped it out with that crit. But that means Leafeon's Leaf Blade that was probably meant to finish off the Raichu instead goes into Oricorio, doesn't do very much damage. Especially after leftovers, it does almost no damage. Clefable coming in here, we know that the Gengar has Sludge Bomb. Terra Steel Clefable with Follow Me. Gengar not falling for it though. That's good. Not fooled by the Clefable coming in on the threatened Shadow Ball, probably anticipating the Steel Terra or something like it. Threatened Sludge Bomb. We're not doing this again. Sludge Bomb. Probably anticipating the Steel Terra or something like it. Just goes for another Shadow Ball. Does pretty good damage to Clefable, but less than half. But a knockoff from Leafeon. Knockoff into Clefable. So yeah, they definitely knew that thing was terrestrializing. Otherwise, that knockoff would have done... Still didn't do a ton, but it would have done really not very much. But Clefable is now in Shadow Ball range. But Oricorio is starting to set up with Quiver Dance. So obviously that's a threat. Clefable with the Follow Me again. It'll get knocked out by the Shadow Ball. Will we see the knockoff into Oricorio? Oh, maybe Leafeon targeted Oricorio with the knockoff last turn. Maybe that's what that was. Then of course it was redirected by the Follow Me. Gengar knocked out by a Revelation Dance. Leafeon going for Dig into, I assume, the Clefable slot. But that is going to be now -2 Dig into Tauros, and that's assuming Tauros doesn't protect. But more importantly, the Plusle has hit the field. It is an electric type. Is it a threat to Oricorio? I believe we saw that it's Terra Water Oricorio last game, so it has no way to turn off its electric weakness. Is that right? Was it Terra Water? I think so. Really hope I didn't get that one wrong as well. Tauros will outspeed the Plusle though and knock it down to a Focus Sash, but Oricorio just goes for Revelation Dance into Leafeon. Does nothing because Leafeon's underground. And so they miss a chance to take the KO on Plusle there, and they'll get their Oricorio paralyzed for it. That Dig doesn't do much to Tauros though. And the Plusle's still in danger. It will just drop to a high horsepower here. I don't know what this chat message is referring to. Doesn't matter. It looks like Leaf Blade does just enough to two-shot Tauros from the HP it was at. Oricorio fully paralyzed. Okay, we see the Golurk come in here. Protecting around a Tauros high horsepower. Leafeon will take the KO on Tauros. The previous Leaf Blade did 43%, so it's... I don't know. I guess there's a chance that the crit mattered if it was a low roll, but I wouldn't bet that the crit mattered. Golurk protecting around the Revelation Dance. Leafeon, it's at -2 attack, but because of that, the Terapagos have let it just sit here, and it has been racking up some damage. And now Oricorio is on an island. Loses his leftovers. Golurk goes for Phantom Force. Oricorio is paralyzed. Phantom Force, of course, breaks Protect, so unlike Dig, you can't just protect around it. The Oricorio would take the damage anyway. And the Phantom Force comes through, doesn't quite KO, but Oricorio's Revelation Dance into Golurk doesn't quite KO either. And Leafeon has just been quietly putting in a ton of work this game, despite the attack drops. Oricorio... What happened there? Oh! Okay, I had to think for a second about why the Revelation Dance hit Golurk through the Phantom Force. It's because of No Guard. So No Guard gives perfect accuracy to all attacks on both sides of the field. I think anyone familiar with the ability knows that. So the Oricorio is never missing an Air Slash into Golurk. Or Hurricane, because the Golurk has No Guard. No Guard works both ways. I forget sometimes, and I remember this being discussed a little bit in the Discord after this set, but I didn't see what had happened to prompt that discussion. I think some coaches might have forgotten. Semi-invulnerable Pokemon, like a Golurk that is vanished using Phantom Force in that first turn, are also hit by attacks because of the No Guard. It's not just I don't think it's an accuracy buff at all. I think it's just a guaranteed hit. No accuracy to worry about. But that's not just for their normal field conditions. That is why the Revelation Dance was able to hit the Golurk through the Phantom Force. So that's a really cool interaction. A lot of really cool interactions this week. But Leafeon will still take the last KO. Leafeon putting in a lot of work. The West Coast Pincurchins take game 2. And yeah, even intimidated that Leafeon has been a menace, even in the face of Oricorio. So we'll see what the Terapagos come up with to adjust in game 3. Maybe you just have to play differently around that Leafeon. But then, of course, it has teammates like Golurk and Gengar that are very threatening. Even the Plusle, it didn't do any significant damage, but it spread paralysis. And that's the strength of the West Coast Pincurchins this season. They just have so many threatening Pokemon that you stop one, but another one might break through. We'll see what happens in game 3 here. Vileplume leading with Pincurchin, so we might get a look at what Vileplume does. And I talked up the threat of Sleep Powder, but you, of course, cannot take advantage of that with Pincurchin. It can still put Talonflame to sleep unless Talonflame terrestrializes or it has safety goggles. But, of course, anything else is protected from sleep by the Psychic Terrain. Talonflame would be protected if it terrestrializes because then it's not a flying type anymore. And I think I just said Psychic Terrain. Obviously, I meant Electric Terrain. But yeah, we're not going to see Sleep Powder from the Vileplume here. I don't know what we are going to see. But it's facing Leafeon and Gengar. Makes sense. Strong lead for the Pincurchins last game. Gengar just going for Protect this first turn. Leafeon going for Dig, probably looking to knock out the Pincurchin. But that is, of course, kind of risky when there could be the Oricorio in the back. Pincurchin going for Throat Chop into Gengar. Okay, Vileplume going for Pollen Puff into Leafeon. Bug-type attack, of course, when it's into an opponent. No Oricorio switching in. Instead, it's the Tauros. They might not have brought Oricorio to this game. We'll see. Sludge Bomb does just under half to the Vileplume. That's a little bit rough for the Pincurchins, but maybe it's a roll to KO. I don't know. But Tauros is not going to take a whole lot from this -1 Dig. And we do see the Sleep Powder. But yeah, the Gengar is protected by their own Electric Terrain. I don't know. Did they think Talonflame was switching in there, or did they just forget? I don't know why. My guess is just forgot, but I don't know. Gengar will stay awake. Vileplume now going for Helping Hand on that Tauros close combat that does knock out the Leafeon. Oh, it's Stellar boosted too. Terra Stellar Tauros boosted close combat with the Helping Hand from Vileplume. So Vileplume has shown Sleep Powder, Pollen Puff, and Helping Hand. It is running a support set, and that Sleep Powder is significantly nerfed by its own teammate's Electric Surge. But the Helping Hand comes through there, and the Leafeon will not be a threat in Game 3. Gengar going for Dazzling Gleam, though, knocks out the Tauros right back. It is resisted by the Vileplume. We see Plusle come in, but it's Raichu on the other side, and I think Raichu is much more of a threat in this terrain than Plusle is. Especially... Oh... Especially with Gengar on the other side. I did not remember that Plusle gets Lightning Rod. Alright, well that really shakes things up. The Raichu much more of a threat. This form of Raichu, of course, does not get Lightning Rod, but apparently Plusle does. We'll see what Plusle does with it. Just Endeavor into Raichu. The problem with that, of course, is because of the Lightning Rod, Plusle didn't take any damage this turn, so the Endeavor doesn't really have any damage to get back. Plusle will now take a Giga Drain. That's the last move on the Vileplume. Chips it down a little bit. Raichu is protecting here. Gengar Shadow Ball stopped by the Protect. And so is Plusle Volt Switch. Vileplume will knock Plusle down to 6% with a Giga Drain. Of course, that means the Endeavor is now much more threatening than it was before. And the Electric Terrain ends here. Raichu switching out to Pincurchin. The Electric Terrain goes back up. Pincurchin takes some hefty damage from a Shadow Ball. And we see the Endeavor into Vileplume knocking it down to 5%. But it has an Aguav Berry, which combined with Giga Drain gets its HP back up a fair bit. So I thought that was going to be potentially a devastating Endeavor once the Vileplume had worn the Plusle down. But yeah, I mean, Vileplume recovers back to basically where it was, and Plusle trades itself for not a whole lot of gain there. The Pincurchins are now down to just Gengar and Golurk. We see a Shadow Ball does knock out the Vileplume. Okay, so that Endeavor may be paying off after all. And High Horsepower knocks out the Pincurchin. But there's still 3 turns of terrain left for the Raichu. The Raichu is the only Pokemon left here. However, it can Grass Knot Golurk. It can Thunderbolt Gengar. But whichever one it does, I think it's going to be knocked out by a Shadow Ball or a High Horsepower. And to make sure that happens, we see the Terra Ghost on the Gengar. Gengar's knocked out. But Golurk closes this one out. And I'm going to be honest, Generally, I go into these replays already knowing who won, even if I pretend otherwise sometimes, because I just see results in the Discord before everything is done and I watch. But I misremembered who won this one. I was waiting for that Terapagos win, but I was mixed up. I was mistaken. Congratulations to the West Coast Pincurchins. The Leafeon put in so much work in the first 2 games. The Gengar and Golurk closed this one out. The Vileplume was pretty awkwardly positioned for the Iridescent Terapagos because of their own electric terrain stopping the Sleep Powder. There might be some bugs to figure out after this recent Vileplume pickup in the trade this week, but I don't want to take anything away from the West Coast Pincurchins here. I've been talking all season about not really understanding the synergies of this team, but sometimes you just assemble a bunch of threats and they just overpower the opponent, and that's what we've seen Golurk, Gengar, and Leafeon in particular do this week, with the Plusle being a nice little disruptor along the way. So that was a fun set. We move on now to the Sinister Sinistcha taking on the Ontario Minccinos. Minccinos, of course, have not lost a single game through 5 weeks of the season, and Sinistcha are in a tough battle for a playoff spot. They are currently on the outside looking in, so they will want to beat the unbeaten to build some momentum here. We'll see if they can pull it off. It's exactly the Pokemon you're expecting from the Ontario Minccinos: Mimikyu, Torracat, Clawitzer, Gothorita, Politoed, and Furret. If they've ever brought anything else at this point, I don't remember. I think we've definitely seen the same 6 at least the last few weeks in a row, but it's hard to argue with how well it's been working. On the Sinistcha side, we do see the duo of Scovillain and Alolan Muck, so Moody Muck shenanigans are on the table. Of course, able to play very like Smeargle Muck with the Scovillain using Rage Powder to redirect attention away from the Muck while it sets up Minimize, and then Power of Alchemy copying Moody. That said, I don't know that that's that strong in this matchup because of the Perish Song on the other side, so I'm not sure Moody Muck is really part of the game plan here. There might be a different reason that Scovillain and Muck are both here. Because Perish Song, it might be too much to say that it hard counters that game plan, but I mean, it's certainly one of the best counters available, because you can put the Muck in a position where it has to give up its boosts or be knocked out pretty easily. There's also the Trick Room stuff with the Trevenant, Slowking, Copperajah, and Hariyama. Very familiar Trick Room core from this team. We'll see how they match up into the Clawitzer. Let me check base speeds, actually. So Copperajah and Slowking are tied for lowest base speed on the Sinistcha, and Clawitzer is faster than them, and also faster than Hariyama and Trevenant. So all the Trick Room Pokemon on the Sinistcha side are slower than Clawitzer. Of course, it could be something like Iron Ball, Clawitzer, or Room Service. But yeah, if they can get Trick Room set up, that could potentially create a number of openings into the not super fast, but faster than these Pokemon on this team. Well, let's see. Trevenant Scovillain lead against Gothorita and Politoed, so it does look to me like the Sinistcha want that Trick Room set up. The Gothorita is threatening a Fake Out, but of course it can't Fake Out Trevenant because it's a Ghost type, and Scovillain can potentially help keep Trevenant healthy, although Trevenant should probably be okay here anyway. Gothorita gets imprisoned though, right? So it could imprison a Trick Room? Let's see. Terra Steel immediately on the Politoed, takes that Energy Ball nicely from the Scovillain. Hits back with a Weather Ball, knocks Scovillain down to a Focus Sash, and we do see Imprison from the Gothorita. But no Trick Room from the Trevenant, maybe anticipating the Imprison, just goes for Poltergeist. Does some decent damage with the Gothorita's own Eviolite, but that Eviolite does also prevent it from KOing. We see Moody on the Scovillain, gets a special defense boost, but that's not really going to help it when it's at 1 HP. Does land a Flamethrower into Politoed, but it is nerfed by the rain, so it doesn't do a ton of damage. As Politoed goes for an Ice Beam into Trevenant. Trevenant's still unable to use Trick Room here, presumably. Just goes for Poltergeist and knocks out the Politoed, and that's very good for the Sinistcha, because of course that takes the Perish Song off the board. There is no other Perish Song user available here. So if it is well, we know now that it's Moody Scovillain. If they brought the Alolan Muck in the back with Power of Alchemy, then that setup does now work. Now its counter has been removed. But I mean, Perish Song not being on the board anymore is a huge relief for a lot of reasons, not just that one. So focusing down the Politoed, even with the defensive Terra type there and presumably good amount of bulk, does pay off. Scovillain unfortunately getting boosts to its bulk that are not useful when it's at 1 HP. What can you do? See the Mimikyu come in, the Gothorita switches out to Torracat, that'll intimidate the Trevenant. Trevenant does switch out to the Alolan Muck. Comes in on a play rough, but takes it reasonably well. We see Life Orb on the Mimikyu. Scovillain just chips the Torracat with Energy Ball. That slot was Gothorita, so I guess looking for the KO there. Does reasonable damage to Torracat. And Scovillain protecting here. What's Muck going to do? Also just protect on the Fake Out from Torracat. Makes sense. But Mimikyu setting up the Sword Stance, creating an offensive threat as long as it can connect with the Muck. And the Muck has not used Minimize so far. Scovillain will get a chance here, though, to use Rage Powder. So that play rough was probably meant for Muck, but it'll knock out the Scovillain instead. Muck now gets access to Moody. Gets a chance to use Minimize. It does take a Flare Blitz first. It does not Minimize. It goes for Toxic into Mimikyu. Okay. So looking to wear Mimikyu down that way. Gets a special defense or a special attack boost and a defense drop from the Moody, though, this turn. That is not what you want to see. That defense drop could be game losing. But we'll probably see a Protect this turn. Rack up some toxic damage on the Mimikyu and see what else they can get from Moody. Trevenant protects. There's no rain, so that Flare Blitz from Torracat will do more damage, but Trevenant protects this turn. Muck does not protect, but Minccinos probably anticipating that it will target the play rough into Trevenant, so it is stopped by a Protect. Parting Shot Torracat into the Muck. We see Gothorita come back in. We see Knockoff into Mimikyu, breaking the Disguise and removing the Life Orb. Mimikyu will take that little bit of Disguise Broken chip. It'll take a little bit of Toxic chip. Muck gets a Speed Boost. Still not great that it has a defense drop, but the Speed Boost could really come in handy here. Probably want to protect around Gothorita Fake Out this turn, though. Oh, but we see the Torracat switch back in, so if they do protect around the Fake Out, there's immediately another Fake Out threatened. Mimikyu knocks out the Trevenant with the Play Rough at +2. The poison damage is starting to add up, but Mimikyu's still here, still threatening. What did Moody do? It boosted defense. Okay, so that defense drop on Muck is now gone. Muck does have the speed boost, but there is also the Fake Out threat from Torracat still. Hariyama goes straight for Terra Steel in front of the Torracat. Interesting. But it gets a boosted Bullet Punch to knock out Mimikyu, even as Muck is flinched by the Fake Out. So there we go. That's what that's for. And you're counting, I guess, on Muck to close this game out now, which it might be able to do with now +3 defense and still +2 speed. Muck knocks off Gothorita, gets rid of the Eviolite, does not get a KO though, that didn't do a ton of damage, and Torracat's Protect stops a Drain Punch. Gothorita sets a Trick Room, but I think Hariyama should be the slowest Pokemon here, right? Well, it detects this turn, so we'll see. Gothorita goes from Prison. I'm not sure what the Gothorita is cooking there, maybe just trying to stop Protect. But Hariyama has Detect, so that's not going to be shut down by the Imprison, even ignoring the fact that, of course, it goes first this turn at least. Hariyama avoids the Flare Blitz. Muck Knockoff removes Torracat's Citrus Berry without Torracat getting to use it. Muck, it just keeps getting those defense boosts after that drop earlier. And so Hariyama Bullet Punch knocking out Gothorita. I think we'll close this one out. Torracat does one-shot the Hariyama with Flare Blitz, but actually the recoil knocks it out. It doesn't even have to deal with the Moody games from here. And the Ontario Minccinos, there's still more of this set to come, of course, but the Ontario Minccinos have finally lost a game. They are mortal. They do bleed. The unbeaten streak in games is over. We'll see about the unbeaten streak in sets. The Sinistcha did a great job this game of removing the Politoed early, and again, that got rid of the Perish Song threat to the Muck game plan. I wouldn't bet that the Sinistcha make it, or that the Minccinos make it that straightforward for them a second time. But let's see. Slowking leading this game with Scovillain against Politoed and Clawitzer. Scovillain going straight for the Rage Powder. It'll get knocked down to its... Oh, not quite to its Sash, but... Yeah, if Clawitzer just attacks there, then Scovillain's knocked out, and it is, so there will be no Moody Muck in this game. But with no Gothorita imprisoning the Trick Room, Slowking does get Trick Room set up. So we'll just see the Trick Room game plan this time from the Sinistcha, as Copperajah is the next Pokemon. Not necessarily what I expected in front of these two water types, but we'll see what they're cooking with it. Terra Fairy immediately. What is that animation? That was so scary. Okay, I know, I went back again, but I was not ready for what just happened with that Slowking. Copperajah, Terra Fairy. What was this? What is this animation? Oh, no. Alright, well, Chilly Reception will turn off the rain. And get Slowking out of there for Hariyama. So, okay, that's... I was kind of wondering why Trevenant didn't come in front of these two water types, because they didn't bring Trevenant this game. That's what was dropped. While that and Muck were dropped to make room for Slowking and Copperajah. So I guess there was, Yeah, so also Moody Muck was just not part of the play in this game. Probably anticipating that they wouldn't get away with it a second time in a row. So that Grovyles was just there to sack itself so that they could get the Trick Room up with Slowking, while the Minccinos adjusted, brought a different lead, so the Gothorita wasn't there to imprison it. Okay. Hariyama's on the field. Cabarrage Play Rough does not quite KO the Clawitzer, but it does nicely take that Dark Pulse after the Fairy Terra. Of course, if we're still a Steel type, well, if we're still a Steel type, it wouldn't resist the Dark Pulse. It would resist the Ice Weather Ball. Probably better to resist the Dark Pulse. We see the Torracat switch in. We see that it's clear Amulet Hariyama. We see Play Rough do a little over half to Torracat. That's pretty good for a -1 resisted attack, but Torracat, after its berry, will be out of range. But Hariyama follows up with a Drain Punch. Doesn't quite KO, but it's close. You can Bullet Punch the Torracat now. Clawitzer does drop to another Dark Pulse, however. We see the Slowking come back in. These two Pokemon are very low, and they're at a disadvantage in Trick Room. Slowking will knock out the Clawitzer. Hariyama Drain Punch will not knock out the Torracat, only because of its Protect. The Politoed is back. The Rain is back. Slowking goes for Psychic into Politoed. Hariyama Drain Punch. Politoed survives both. Lands a big Water-type Weather Ball into Hariyama. Torracat goes for Parting Shot into Hariyama. There's nothing that can switch in. These are the last two Pokemon. Maybe they forgot about the Clear Amulet. I don't know. Torracat doesn't accomplish anything there. But now with the Trick Room over, it'll be the fastest Pokemon on the field. It can Parting Shoot the Slowking. Get Mimikyu in safely. They've had Mimikyu lurking in the back all this time. And yeah, the Cabarrage was just not doing quite enough damage before it went down. And I'm not sure the Sinistcha have enough left to beat this Mimikyu. That is a scary Pokemon. Well, they could get Scald Burn. No burn. That is a scary Pokemon to see come out in the late game like this when you are a little bit low on resources. It just Shadow Sneak Slowking. Does a lot, though. And there's the Perish Song from the Politoed. Another Scald into Mimikyu. This one does burn, but at this point, I'm sure they have Protect on everything because that's how you build Perish Song. They have the Torracat with Fake Out at the back. The Slowking is just not going to have enough turns to win this one. So the Scald Burn doesn't really matter in the end. Actually, the Torracat just hard switches in here. I feel like if there's any way that the Minccinos can lose this game, it has to start with that. But does it work? I don't know why you would switch the Torracat into the slot that they're targeting with Scald. You take your own... Is it Covert Cloak Slowking? We don't know. Okay. You take your own Fake Out off the board. Slowking can get a KO here if it just Scalds that slot again. The Mimikyu, you'd think the Mimikyu has Protect because, again, generally the way you build Perish Song is Protect on everything. So if Torracat is knocked out here... No, they can still just Protect, and the Slowking can probably... Yeah, we've seen all the Slowking's moves. It doesn't have spread damage. So even if Torracat's knocked out here, if they just Protect next turn, they still win. That switch sure looked weird to me at first. But it doesn't matter. The Minccinos should still guarantee this one. Just get through the second last turn. Yep, Protect on Mimikyu, Protect on Politoed, and then Slowking can only take 1 KO before it drops to the Perish Song. Okay, so I had to stop and think about that one, but it doesn't actually matter. This was guaranteed regardless. And Politoed actually gets the KO with Weather Ball. No Perish Song KO needed. But of course, there's nothing Slowking can do but just try to attack through it, so the Perish Song does still influence the way that it plays. Game 1, the Sinistcha removed the Politoed early, and then overwhelmed the opponent with Moody Muck. Game 2, they did not bring Moody Muck, and more importantly, I think they did not remove the Politoed early, and so there was the Perish Song endgame, but also the Minccinos were able to keep the Mimikyu hidden in the back until there was not a whole lot left to deal with it, although that Scald Slowking was something. Yeah, feels like a lot hinges on the Politoed here. We'll see if the Sinistcha have another way to deal with that Pokemon early and then break through its teammates. The Clawitzer also was a big offensive threat in Game 2, though, so it's certainly not going to be easy. But this is the first Ontario Minccinos Game 3 of the season, and we'll see if they're equipped for it. Also, we'll see if I get nightmares from the Chilly Reception animation, if that move plays out again this game. It is Politoed Clawitzer lead again, this time against Grovyles and Trevenant. So the Trevenant is maybe more of an immediate offensive threat to the Clawitzer than something like Cabarrage is. If you're the Sinistcha, you certainly hope so. but his Terra Dragon Clawitzer just clicks that immediately. Trevenant and Politoed both protecting though, sort of scouting out the position, I'm sure. Clawitzer still takes some chip from the Scovillain Energy Ball, but knocks Scovillain down to its sash with a Dragon Pulse. Scovillain gets a special attack boost from Moody. There could be a big attack coming from the Scovillain before it gets knocked out. We'll see what happens here, what they go for, how it plays out. But no big attack, just a Rage Powder. Redirecting the Weather Ball, knocks out the Scovillain. Trevenant narrowly survives that Terra boosted Dragon Pulse. And so the Rage Powder Trick Room play does work again, although it costs almost the entire Trevenant, and we don't get to see Scovillain do anything with that special attack boost, but I guess that just wasn't part of the game plan. Copperajah is here again. We see the Terra Grass Trevenant looking, I'm sure, to threaten Politoed immediately. And this time the Play Rough Copperajah, because it's Terra Dragon Clawitzer, this time it has enough damage. KO's Clawitzer. Ooh, Trevenant narrowly misses the KO into Politoed with Horned Leech. Trevenant gets a lot of HP back. It'll be able to take another Weather Ball, I would think, but yeah, the Politoed surviving could be clutch. We'll see. It does a lot to Copperajah with Weather Ball, but now the Mimikyu is here, forced out a little bit earlier than it was in Game 2. Sinistcha still have 3 Pokemon, including these 2 offensive threats here. Mimikyu just protecting through a turn of Trick Room, though. And again, that's the tricky thing about bringing this team against Perish Rain. You know the opponents are going to have Protect. It's a little bit harder to make the most of your Trick Room turns. And they double target the Mimikyu. I guess trying to deny the Sword Stance setup, just knock it out with the Poltergeist. But because the Mimikyu protects here, Politoed is free to go for another attack, and it knocks out Copperajah. We'll see what the last Pokemon is for the Sinistcha. It's Hariyama. So that could Bullet Punch Mimikyu, but Mimikyu switches out to Torracat. Hariyama's Clear Amulet will stop the Intimidate, but Torracat will not mind taking Bullet Punch. They also could Bullet Punch Politoed, but it protects, and the Bullet Punch into Torracat. It does some damage. Trevenant misses a Poltergeist. I recently was reminded that Poltergeist can miss. I thought for a while that it was 100 accuracy, but it's not. Mimikyu switching back in here. Hariyama gets faked out on the last turn of Trick Room too. So Mimikyu's Disguise will be broken, but it's still here, still able to do some damage. Still faster than anything. On the other side, it actually just goes for Protect first. Trevenant protects as well. Makes sense. Mimikyu creating openings here, also avoiding that Bullet Punch. Torracat Flare Blitz is stopped by the Protect. Bullet Punch does not knock out the Mimikyu, and a Play Rough back does knock out Hariyama. Torracat Flare Blitz knocks out Trevenant. And the Politoed did not have to come back in. Some respect in the chat here. That was a really well played set by both players. That was really something to watch. I would not at all be mad to see a rematch in the playoffs, but unfortunately, it is going to be hard for the Sinistcha to make the playoffs after this loss. It might not be impossible, I'm not sure, but this was one that they might have needed to win. But we'll see. If they do make the playoffs, this would be a really cool rematch to see, and it could easily happen as a 1 versus 8 matchup. Those were some really solid Sinistcha game plans. They did fall a little bit short in the end, but again, they did show that the Ontario Minccinos are mortal. It is possible to beat them, at least in a game. That Mimikyu was such a menace, though. And there is one more set left to go. That is between Pendragon United and the Foraging Furrets. Furrets bringing the usual Staraptor, Bramblegast, possible Wind Rider stuff, the Bisharp discouraging opposing Intimidates, the Weezing messing with abilities, although it has to be careful of messing with its partner's abilities, and then Girder and Dedenne are here too. And on the Pendragon United side, we have the menace that is Crawdaunt, although if there is a Weezing game plan from the other side, the Pelipper might not be able to set up rain for the Crawdaunt so easily. The Pachirisu with Follow Me, and the Rhydon with Lightning Rod. Again, Weezing could create some trouble, but Follow Me still works in neutralizing gas. And we'll see what kind of threat the Vikavolt can be here. Could be a strong offensive threat into Weezing, which is more physically defensive than Specialty, and of course into Staraptor. So the Vikavolt I could see putting in some work, but we'll see. I don't know what the Mistress is for this week. Bisharp leading with Dedenne against Pelipper and Crawdaunt, so the Drizzle will activate here. And Crawdaunt has what? Adaptability? It can have adaptability. It could have Hypercutter into this team because of the possible Intimidate Staraptor, but if it has adaptability, it's able to take advantage of that. We've seen what this Pokemon does throughout the season. It hits extremely hard in the rain. Pelipper switching out to Rhydon. But with Weezing on the board, Unless Rhydon has an ability shield, which actually is possible. I could see an ability shield being somewhere on this team. I could see it being on Pelipper or Rhydon. If it's not on Rhydon, then there is no Lightning Rod cover for the Groudon. And Rhydon does not have an ability shield. Groudon is just dropped by a Thunder from Dedenne. Pachirisu comes in, too late to protect its vulnerable partner though. Weezing goes Terra Ground immediately as the Brambleghast switches in, but Pachirisu going for a Super Fang, removing half of Weezing's HP anyway, only a quarter after the Citrus Berry. Ground Terra Blast does not KO Pachirisu, but does some pretty big damage, and we see Iron Defense on the Rhydon, so Rhydon might actually be a win con in this matchup. It is threatened by the Brambleghast, but perhaps somewhat less so after Iron Defense, and they do still have Terra available. And we've seen this Rhydon go nuts with a defensive Terra type before. I mean, it is very much a threat in its own right, not just a support for Groudon and Pelipper. We see Terra Dragon in this case, so that'll take a Power Whip a lot better. Nuzzle will paralyze the Brambleghast before Pachirisu drops to a Ground Terra Blast. Brambleghast is fully paralyzed, and it's another Iron Defense from Rhydon. Rhydon getting set up here. Pelipper's back. Air Slash just knocks out the Brambleghast. Of course, Hurricane is a wind move, so with Wind Rider, well, you don't have to worry about it. Actually, is Air Slash a wind move too? Feels like it should be. Here I was thinking maybe it's Air Slash Pelipper because Hurricane is a wind move, but I think Air Slash might be a wind move. I'll check. Doesn't matter, of course, abilities are turned off by the Weezing right now, so Hurricane would have knocked out the Brambleghast, and so does Air Slash. Pelipper takes a Sludge Bomb. Body Press from the Rhydon. Weezing so physically bulky, not KO'd by the +4 Body Press, but it certainly hurts. But Dedenne is back. There's still no Lightning Rod on the board. Dedenne is a massive threat to the Pelipper, which now cannot Terrasilize. We see Dazzling Gleam, actually, and no Wide Guard from the Pelipper, so Rhydon takes a lot of damage. It's been boosting its defense, but not its special defense. But Weather Ball from Pelipper knocks out Dedenne, so there will not be a second Dazzling Gleam. Weezing knocks out Pelipper. Rhydon misses a Rock Slide. I don't know how much that would do to Ground-type Weezing. That clearly is bulky anyway, but we got Bisharp coming in. What happens here? The Weezing is faster than the Rhydon, so Ground Terra Blast or a Sludge Bomb is a threat. Throat Chop from the Bisharp probably somewhat less threatening, but yeah, we'll see. We'll just have to see what that Sludge Bomb does. Rhydon gets a little bit of leftovers recovery there. Takes the Throat Chop, maybe not as well as it would like, and it does just drop to a Sludge Bomb. So Weezing, after stopping the Lightning Rod, closes the game out for the Foraging Furrets. They take game 1, and before we go to game 2, let me just see whether Air Slash is a wind move. It's not. Air Cutter is, but not Air Slash. Okay, that's not very intuitive to me, but that probably is then why it's Air Slash Pelipper this week, so that the Brambleghast isn't immune. But yeah, that Weezing was a menace. And once the Rhydon went Terra Dragon, it took neutral damage from the Sludge Bomb. It also, of course, could be poisoned by Sludge Bomb. So we'll see if there's a different game plan from Pendragon United this time. We see Staraptor leading with Dedenne against Pachirisu and Rhydon. Pachirisu and Rhydon is interesting. It's probably just Follow Me Iron Defense setup, right? And with the Follow Me, the Staraptor can't just click Final Gambit. U-turns instead. See Bisharp come in. Dazzling Gleam from Dedenne doesn't do as much to Rhydon when Rhydon isn't a Dragon type, but it still does some damage. And that Rock Slide back from Rhydon it does some damage back to Dedenne, but Dedenne is still threatening another Dazzling Gleam here. And with leftovers, Rhydon, I guess, can take it. We see the Protect. Dazzling Gleam will knock out Pachirisu, but Rhydon will get some HP back. But it is now threatened by Low Kick from the Bisharp. And the Rhydon is kind of pinned here, right? Because it's going to take big damage from Low Kick. It's not at all... It doesn't have any Iron Defense boosts yet. Or if it Terrasilizes, then it's in danger against that Dazzling Gleam. We'll see if Vikavolt can relieve the pressure. Bisharp does switch out here. Maybe afraid of something from the Vikavolt, I'm not sure. We see Staraptor come in. But Rhydon switches out to Pelipper. Vikavolt goes Terra Ground. Dazzling Gleam still doing good spread damage here before Dedenne is knocked out by a Terra Blast. We've seen Ground Terra Blast from both sides of this matchup, by the way. You see Bisharp come in now. Vikavolt just protecting. On a double edge from Staraptor. Let me tell you, I know from experience, that can do a lot of damage. I brought Iron Defense Torkoal against this team in week 4, of course, and that Staraptor double edge was still a massive threat even when I started getting Torkoal set up. This Vikavolt is in danger, but maybe we'll see a Tailwind from the Pelipper here. Nope, it's Weather Ball. It knocks out the Staraptor. That's another way to remove a threat. that certainly works too. But Pelipper will get knocked out back by a Throat Chop. We see Weezing come in. We see Rhydon. So it's down to Vikavolt and Rhydon against Bisharp and Weezing. Weezing also going for the Terra Ground. Bisharp outspeeds Vikavolt, knocks it out. Was Bisharp faster than Pelipper? Did we know? Higher base speed, so maybe so. You really kind of wish you had Tailwind here if you're Pendragon United, but maybe there just was not an opportunity. No, hold on. They both attacked that turn. No, Pelipper went before Bisharp, but maybe they... Yeah, I feel like Pelipper setting Tailwind might have made a real difference here. Although then the Staraptor gets a chance to damage something. But you get the speed advantage in these turns. Anyway. What can you do? Rhydon's here alone. Gets blasted by that ground Terra Blast. It does knock out the Bisharp with a Body Press, but Weezing, I think, is going to close this one out. Yeah, there's not even the Terra available for the Rhydon, so nothing to help it take that ground Terra Blast. It can protect, it can get some leftovers recovery, but that did 55%. It's not... I mean, it would need a triple protect, I think, to have a chance of surviving. And it does not even go for the double, so it does just drop to a ground Terra Blast. Ground Terra Blast Weezing, closing out back-to-back games. I think it closed out the first one with Sludge Bomb, but nonetheless, Terra Ground Weezing putting in a lot of work here. And you might have noticed at the end of Week 6, at the beginning of Week 6, there were 3 undefeated teams. At the end of Week 6, there's only one. The Winchester Walreins and Pendragon United both took their first losses this week. And the Ontario Minccinos are now the lone undefeated team, though they also are not undefeated in games anymore. So as we head into the late stretch of the season, and a lot of coaches are getting very comfortable with their teams and figuring out game plans that they really like, things were always competitive, but they're getting more competitive than they were before. Anyone can beat anyone in this league, for sure. And there could still be some surprises ahead in the last 2 weeks of the regular season, and then playoffs will just be chaos. Who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, some real shakeups this week, but also 4 teams at 5-1 or better. And we'll just have to see what happens to that playoff field. Whether 5-3 even guarantees a playoff spot. Whether our Masquerade men get there. Of course, we're sitting at 4-2 right now with a couple of tough opponents still ahead. A lot to find out in these last 2 weeks, so stick around and we'll see together.